Hey everybody, welcome to the Faith and Fandom podcast. Going to do Artist Alley Aftermath for 2 community events that I recently was able to be part of. And they're short events, so this will probably be a short podcast. But, some of you genuinely care about how these things go. So, here we go. One event was a 20th anniversary celebration for a elementary middle school in Central-ish North Carolina, and I was asked to set up my booth because they were doing vendors and artists and stuff like that. And I had connections with the folks and the school as well that I didn't actually recognize before. And so I said yes. A public school asking me to set up my booth, that's going to be a yes from me because I'm going to take that opportunity every time it comes. And I went, set up, on a sidewalk where they did all of the 30 vendors I believe they had listed in a big U shape across the school parking lot. There were supposed to be 5 food trucks. I think 4 showed up. And, I was next to Lyle Pollard, who I've worked with on many a project. This was just in a school parking lot. And, they had a pseudo DJ playing Kids Bop tracks the whole night, or random folks playing saxophone, or someone leading worship as a performance piece. And so it was an interesting vibe on this, and it was a shortish thing. Like, it was an hour for me, like an hour and maybe 10 minutes to get there, and the event lasted from 5:30 to 8, so pretty short. But they wanted us all there and set up by 5 o'clock. And so I was trying to be really on top of that. And one of the things I've learned, if you've listened to these things, back when I did one of the Fayetteville events that was Fourth Friday, or Cool Springs Downtown District, it was a nerd market, something like that. I set up my booth and I learned that it got dark real fast and it was really hard to see, and the street lights were not dependable. So since then, I've learned that if I'm going to be at an outdoor event, I'm going to bring lights. So I have my handy dandy portable battery pack thing that's pretty strong and sturdy. And I brought 2 desk lamps, 2 LED desk lamps, put them on the corner of my desk, and the event started at 5:30, but it started getting dark at like 5:15. And so I turned my desk lamps on and I watched as the sun completely set and it got dark, that literally no other artist or vendor at this shindig of the 30 artists and vendors who were there had light. Now, there were street lights or parking lot lights over our heads, but none of them were on. I'm guessing that they were set on a timer till like 7 o'clock, which was not fruitful. And they said they were, people were kind of panicky, like, we're going to try and get these going. And we ended up, for a solid chunk of time, I was the only visible booth out there. You could see the food trucks, but for me, I was pretty grateful because I was the only booth you could see. Now, that didn't necessarily help me because everybody that could see a booth of Bible studies, candles, and stickers didn't mean that I was the booth they wanted to stop at. But, it was a pretty neat experience with that. Eventually the lights turned on, but again, I kept my lights on the whole night because it still wasn't crazy bright. But it was good interactions. A couple teachers really freaked out over the books and they were really excited. I ran into an old friend who I hadn't seen in a few years, who I didn't realize taught there. I got to hang out with Lyle. We talked about Blue Beetle and Spider-Verse and some Spider-Man stuff that was going on, and we kind of discussed details for the comic book that we've been working on for a hot minute. And overall, it was a pretty quick little event. Got a apple cinnamon cake pop. I had not a silly, scary experience, but it was just one of those things of like, where I caught myself like, man, that was silly of me. I went to a food truck to get my food right before the event started. And I looked up, and I was startled because the gentleman that was at the food truck had a lot of scar tissue. Like, he looked like he had been badly burned. Um, and I felt like a kid in an 80s movie who would see something like that, and their first response was to run or to hide, just something like Short Round from Goonies or something like that. And like, literally, I had a moment internally where my fight or flight response kicked in. And I was like, hold up, dude, calm down. You're a grown up. It just literally, it just startled me. I wasn't mocking his appearance or anything of that nature, but just literally it caught me off guard, and I had to like recollect my thoughts. Um, but it was an experience. It was an experience, with that. And when all was said and done, it was a good evening, good little experience, support the school. Grateful to be part of it. I sold a good handful of candles. And then, one of the other things I really just sold was, my little sketch bookmarks. There was one kid who felt like he was the biggest baller in the world, and he bought all of my good sketch cards at once. And I was like, poop, I might actually have to draw more of these right now. I'm kind of like at the end where like I'm out of most of my books. Like, I don't have any fives or junior or anything else. I might have one copy of something. So I don't have a lot of like inventory right now. And the last sketch cards I did were at Fayetteville Comic Con. I really didn't want to plan to have to do more, but apparently I'm going to need to, in that capacity. So packed it up, left all of my stuff in the car, because as I pulled out of the parking lot at 9 a.m. or at 9 p.m., at that time, I had to be set up and going at another event at 9 a.m. So 12 hours later, I had to be set up 2 hours away from where I was at that point for another one. And this one was going to be a church's community bazaar, Christmas bazaar. And here's what I'm going to go ahead and tell you. If I'm at a function where the word bazaar is used, I'm probably in the wrong place. Not in an ugly way, not in a negative way, just of like, that's probably not my audience. And I am fully aware that my booth is geared to be functional at a Comic-Con, so it's not always going to work in certain settings. And this was in a Eastern North Carolina church fellowship hall / youth area. And it's a kind of a middle of nowhere place that you've probably never been to. Very small town. Like, we're talking a Dollar General, a Family Dollar, and a gas station, and that's about it. And a high school. So I went and I set up, and it was one of those things of, I got there, and the person who I was in contact with was their youth pastor, who I've met doing shows, and he was a vendor at MyCon. He does wrestling art, and he recommended me for this and told me I should come do it, and he came and did my show. So I was like, you know what, let me go do this. I've never done anything in this part of the community that wasn't related to my daughter's dance performances, so I'm gonna go do this. And so I went, and I got there at 7 a.m. because that's when he told me to. He said they were going to open the doors at 7 a.m. so people could set up, and because they wanted everybody ready by 9. No one got there to let people in until 7:45. And so there's just this awkward, quiet parking lot full of artists, like watching every car that passes by, seeing who's going to come let them in. Now, I also, in advance, just sitting in the parking lot, got the gauge. I was like, oh, I do not match the vibe, because everybody was like door wreaths and wooden Christmas signs. And again, it's a Christmas bazaar. I'm fully aware I am not peddling Christmas merch, and it wouldn't fit normally anywhere in the real world. But this was a different thing. So eventually I got in, got set up. I sat my booth next to the artist because that invited me, because I was definitely going to be the only other nerdy thing in there. And he does like caricature art of wrestlers and portraits. I was like, well, at least let me be moderately near somebody doing something nerdy. So I set my booth up. To the right of me were like wind chimes and porch decorations. To the left of me was wrestling art. At my 10 o'clock was someone doing custom Christmas ornaments and snacks and stuff. And I'm going to revisit that. Right in front of me was somebody who sold knives, but he didn't make them. He would buy them wholesale and sell knives, old pocket knives. And almost everything else was either jewelry or wood crafting. Yeah, it was jewels or woodcraft, I think, almost everywhere else. Now, they did have some booths down the hallway, like in some of the Sunday school rooms or whatever, but I never actually saw what was in there. And so, since I had time, I had some, like, canvases that I was doing line work on because I'd already done the basic painting the night before, like in the time that I should have been sleeping. So I got my canvases finished. I sketched cards and started to try and fill out my sketch card notebook a little bit more. And the event was only from 9 until 2, I think. And I'm not saying this in to poop on them or to say it was a bad event or anything of that nature. I'm just saying it was not a heavily attended event. There may have been 25 attenders for the whole time. And this is in just a church, middle of nowhere, not my audience, not my crowd. I'm trying to be supportive and just be there. So I wasn't going to be upset or wounded if I didn't sell anything or if there wasn't attendance. And the reality is this: if setting up in a church, I'm not even really doing outreach because salt's already in the shaker. So it was just kind of like, okay, I'm just doing this for follow through. And I think I had 2 conversations in that time about what the booths actually were. One lady was interested in one of the devotionals, like the Mary and Martha one. In terms of sales, I think I sold 2 candles, maybe 3. And I sold 2 sets of the grannies from Bluey's in my sketch card. And I think I sold $6 or 6 items total, like 4 sketch cards and 2 candles. I had good conversations. I talked with the youth pastor there. I did work for church. I just kind of hung out with it, but it reminded me that this ministry is based for cons, and I can't expect what I've built to be functional in a Comic-Con space to be functional everywhere else. So, noted. I appreciated it, and 1 week later, I'm going to be at a Christmas market at my own church building. I'm not running it. But I also have to remind myself of the same things. So, I'm a con ministry. So I'm not a Christmas market ministry or a school parking lot ministry. But what I do want is that if Faith and Fandom is ever given the invitation to be part of a community event, I'm going to show up. So neither of these were bad events. The attendance didn't make it bad. I will say one cool thing was there was a Mediterranean food truck in the parking lot, and I went out because I got hungry, obviously, at some point, and I didn't bring snacks or anything because I was still depleted from the night before, and he had shawarma. Now, as being a nerd and living in the South, the first time I'd ever heard the word shawarma was in Avengers. And so I got really excited to finally try shawarma. And I got shawarma, and I ate it. And it was cool. It was fine. But then, before the event closed down, the food truck dude actually came in, and he came to the booth, and we had a conversation about the books and everything, and he thought it was really great. And so, and I was like, and we talked about shawarma too. So, I had my own little Avengers moment in that capacity. Also, on this was on a Saturday. On the Friday prior, the same night as the school event, I had done a podcast interview with Audrey Allen, who is a professional wrestler. And I was like, you know what? This dude next to me is doing wrestling art. So I am going to, as a thank you, have him do a sketch of her. And so I had him do a sketch of the wrestler that I'd just done for my podcast, and I'm going to try and get it to her somewhere in the near future. But, it was a cool experience, and I got to support my neighbor and friend with that and by ordering that. So that's kind of it. Didn't really talk to too many people at that last one, but, still a good experience. And I'm only a couple of days away from doing the Christmas market at my own church building. And, we'll see how that community goes as well. But I'm probably just going to be running around trying to help people at that one. But either way, it makes me miss cons, and I'm looking forward to it. I also did, in that same time space while I was there, because I was missing cons, I contacted my local comic shop to see if there was a day I could set my booth up at the comic shop, because Lyle had told me the night before he was setting up, and so they booked us both for the same day. So now Lyle and I will both be set up at Dragon's Lair in Fayetteville on December 9th. So that'll be a little closer to home, even if it's not a con, because as it sits, my next con that I'm doing is at the end of February. And yeah, I miss them. I miss the people. I miss y'all. So hopefully we'll be back at a con soon. So yeah, this was the Artist Alley Aftermath for some community events. And I miss y'all. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you to all our Patreon supporters. And I will see you at a con soon.